Bam. All right, we are back. Today's guest, her name is Tarah. Let me read a little bit of Tarah. Tarah is a designer, certified lifestyle meditation teacher, international best-selling co-author of Courageous Heart and Shine. Tarah has always had a passion for metaphysics and learning about various spiritual practices. She began her holistic journey in 2001 as a massage therapist, but her creativity has always been a driving force which led her to design and other creative ventures. After her own health hurdle, she discovered the importance of connecting mind, body, and your environment for your ultimate well-being. Tarah is passionate in helping others understand this magic connection. So, just waiting for Tarah to come on, and we will begin. Huh? What I find always interesting is a lot of these guests that come on I've known, but when you read their bio, it's so interesting of like their achievements and the things that they've done, and it could be from anything. It could just be a person that's having a child, to the fact that somebody's written a book, to the fact that somebody's gone on a journey. You never really know somebody's story until you sit down and you listen to it. So listen to a little more of the story with Tarah right now. There you go. Hey, yo.
Hey, how's it going?
Not bad. Let me shut the door because no one's here. Just a force of habit. So what I was saying is how interesting it is. Like, I've known you. We've had talks. We've done it before, and it's always interesting. Like, you've had a talk with an individual, but then when you actually read their bio, it's like a whole new thing. Like things that they've done, and you really don't know. Even the bio in itself is just encapsulated of such a small amount of time. But what's so interesting about it is like people's stories. Like, we all have these stories that like it's like what's interesting, I think, in life is you're constantly walking by stories. Like, everybody is a story, and it's just like my friend that I was speaking to in Germany. Like, he's so interested, and he'll stop and he'll ask people because he wants to know what this story is about, what this story is about, what this story is about, and through that he finds this connection with individuals in their lives, and he finds this kind of beauty because it's like the thought that I had when I was younger was, when you're younger, you think you're a character in a book and you have no choice. But then you get older, the narrator comes in, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, what's these thoughts? Like, this is interesting. And then later on, you realize that you become the author. You have this ability to, like, one sec, I'm not just the narrator. Like, I'm not just the thoughts. I can do things about it. And you get to this point, but there's a next level that we received later in our life is we become the librarian, being like, I don't even want this book. And then you just take another one off the shelf and you're like, I'll be this today. And then you take another one off the shelf. It's like we constantly have the ability to become whatever we choose to be in every given moment. Anyways, that's just a little rant. So back to you. Tell me about yourself. Tell me a little more about you.
Tell me more about you. Where to begin? Well, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of, in talking about this, I'm like a student of life. So I think I'm like ever evolving and always curious to find out more about what's going on. I had that normal like upbringing. Not normal, I guess. I mean, my parents were hardworking, but they were raised on the farm, so they've kind of got that hardworking mentality, go, 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 side business all the time. So I think for me, from a really young age, I was like the one at home to take care of everything because they were always, working and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really instilled in me at a really young age to do those kinds of things. And whether, we had a lot of sports, people in our family, a lot of athletes and stuff too, and watching them become, really successful. I think that mentality of the hard work going in behind it was really there. But
Mm-hmm.
on the flip side about that, as time goes by and over the years, you find how that stress and that the amount of things that you put on your plate and you try to like tackle and do and achieve, you know, eventually there needs to be some kind of a balance, or, you know, what's the purpose for doing it all? So yeah, so for me, it was kind of one of those things where I just, you know, I got married at a young age. I had kids at a young age. I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. So I started a business. I had a salon and spa on White Avenue here in Edmonton, Alberta. And I was like 20 at the time. So
Hmm.
it was a lot. And I was building a house. And I just kind of kept adding things. And I mean, at that point, I dabbled into like the holistic realm. I think I've always been curious about things like that. But certainly it was always about working and the next thing and what's the next project and the next big thing. And over time, that landed me sick. I ended up, you know, going through a bit of a health hurdle. And
Hmm.
that was a huge awareness for me as to like, why did I do all this? What's the point of going through all this to end up here? Like, what's going on? So then I really kind of just took a deeper dive into like life. And I had a friend at the time who was diagnosed with brain cancer, and she's passed now. But we went through an experience together differently, but, you know, we
Hmm.
connected that way. And after she passed away, for me, there became like a lot of questioning everything. Why her? Why not me? Why, you know, a lot of things. Why, why we go through this life working so hard and doing all these things. And then, you know, we try to get to some point. And then that's where, you know, really looking at living in the present moment and this awareness about all these things kind of came up. So
Hmm.
as the student of life that I am, I was in design school at the time. So I put that aside and, you know, started working with a coach and real, because I had this like inner urge to like, you know, bring in this wellness aspect. Like when I went through my health journey, everything was addressed through natural means, holistic means. I was blessed. I have a good friend. She's a doctor of acupuncture. She introduced me to an integrative doctor who was amazing. And he basically was like, here's books, read.
Hmm.
So that's what I did. And I started reading and watching documentaries. And it was really cool finding out just the times and the patterns and how it kind of aligned in history with, you know, having studied architecture and design school. You started to see a lot of these different patterns. And I didn't really find history that interesting before, but I do now. And yeah, so, you know, that mindfulness, the meditation, you know, these things started to fall into place in my life. It wasn't things that I ever sought out to do. But now that like the circles kind of come around, it's so interesting how it's all connected. And it's so interesting how each little piece has kind of led to this point. And now what seemed like a whole bunch of randomness makes a lot more sense. I don't know if that makes any sense whatsoever.
It makes a lot of sense. It's interesting because when you're trying to explain your journey and the things that have happened in your life and to encapsulate it into like, okay, these few sentences, it's kind of difficult. So if we were going to go back a bit, I wanna ask you a question, and I want to break it into three parts. When you, what was your lifestyle and thought pattern or and identity prior to the illness, during it, and then now after a while of after having it?
Well, definitely, I think just for me, because I was always like a people pleaser, always the one that took care of things. That's exactly what I did. When I found out about it, it was like, okay, now I have to worry about everybody so that they're okay, because they
Hmm.
need me to be, they need my support right now to be strong. And that was kind of the norm. That was the go-to. And so during it, for me, it was really just more about a focus. Like my mindset was very much, I was always like raised, like if you believe you can achieve, if you set your mind to, you can do it.
Hmm.
I'm always up for a challenge. So when somebody tells me I can't do something, it kind of just, you know, motivates me to try to do it even more. If that makes any sense. But yeah, so during that time, it was really just about focusing on doing the things that I needed to do on a daily basis that I believed would get me well, whether that was juicing, going for a walk, you know, doing detox saunas and things like that. It was just really about one step at a time.
Hmm.
it was afterwards that the awareness has started to come up, and the healing really started to become aware that needed to be taken care of, if that makes sense. Because it was like the day that I found out everything was good, everyone's like, oh, you're good now. Bye. Okay, great. She's back to normal. And then it was like, huh, why do I have all this like, stuff bubbling up inside? And so that, yeah, that was a journey in itself to kind of to work through, and then really go back and break down to why it all came about in the first place. Because I really do believe that, one of the first things I was told is we heal the body as a whole. And I do believe that there's a lot to that. And, your environment, your mindset, your mindfulness. I think I've always had a pretty strong mindset, but
Hmm.
definitely my perception shifted on how to use my brain a little bit better, and how to use tools to, just achieve different outcomes and look at things a little bit differently. Because sometimes when you get in those situations, you can just spiral downhill, and you don't come out of it. So really thinking outside of the box, asking different questions and trying different things afterwards is kind of where I had shifted to, I guess. Yeah.
Interesting. So, see, I like how you come up with the methods and all of this stuff, but how did you discover them, and how did you use them in your life?
Well, definitely for me, it was working with a coach is really how the discovery process began.
Hmm.
I had never done that before, and I didn't know, I didn't even really know what coaching was. It was a series of events and synchronicities that kind of fell into place. And I think that's because I was really searching for alignment and a purpose, and, a reason for why everything was going down. So after finding her, I think the first thing she said to me is, okay, it's about 80% or 20% about business and 80% about everything else.
Hmm.
And I didn't really know what she meant when she said that. But yeah, that's for me where it really started, was getting to know somebody that didn't know me, that, was kind of like that observer person, and starting to work through those things. But we had that connection. So that was definitely a huge transitional starting point. And that was something that I had to be open to allowing myself to do, and open to allowing myself to go through that journey, because I could have shied away from it. But at the time, I felt it was something that I really needed to experience.
Well, I find, I've spoken to a lot of people even through the series, and they discovered that they had an autoimmune disease. They found that there was an issue that sprung up in their life that caused them to change. But I'm always curious to know about the thought process. Here you are living this life, go, 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 creating these businesses, and then you get diagnosed with something. What were the thoughts that came into your mind? What were you saying to yourself when this happened?
Um, Immediately, it was really like, I'll figure it out. There's got
Hmm.
to be a solution. Well, I just have to find it. And that's where, again, I think it's when you're open to the possibility, things will come. When you keep that mindset closed, in your perception not as expansive, I think you create narrower pathways of, what you can allow to come in and not to come in. So for me, it was just like, there's got to be a solution. And at that time, I was watching a documentary series too, because of my friend, and I was reading and stuff. So I was kind of already like in the energy and flow that, like, there was a little bit more out there to healing the body, and that whole thing than I had been shown, just being grown up. But it made a lot of sense too, having grandparents that grew up on a farm and going back to basics, and foods naturally, like things like that. It made sense, right? It wasn't like it was that weird when you really thought about it. So, so yeah, I think that definitely for me, my mindset was just to find a solution. And then, like I said, it was a bunch of synchronicities, and people came into my life like just right when they needed to.
So once you found out the news and you came up with this idea, were there any aspects in your life that changed due to it?
Oh, yeah, that's when the fun begins. Let me tell you. Yeah, absolutely. Because, I think that when anybody goes through something or experiences something, they change. I don't think that it's possible that they can't. And then
Hmm.
when you decide you want to go and accelerate that and work with people and then add in a little bit of magic and things, oh, it can accelerate even quicker. So, that was something that I wasn't really prepared for. I wasn't really prepared for how, people in my life that I had known would respond or react towards these changes that I had made in my decisions, because it wasn't actually received very well, to be honest.
Really?
Everybody had an opinion and everybody thought, you should do something different. And well, but of course I just go, I have, my mind of my own. I'll find the answers that I need, right, in my own weird, quirky way. But yeah, you really learned about the people around you, because people can identify with you that the same way that they used to, because you're not
Hmm.
the same. My brother once said to me, "Oh, I just want to be, I missed you when you were like 20 years ago and you just were like this." And I was like, "What do you mean? Would you want to be where you were 20 years ago?" Like, I'm like, I don't want to go back there. So, everything is always constantly changing. Time's constantly moving, everything's shifting, energy's moving. And so, I think when we recognize we have to get into that flow and in that space, I think it becomes a little bit easier.
Yeah, things like that take time. The change is one of the biggest aspects that really mess people up because change is the only constant. And the thing is, a lot of times we try to hold on to how things were in the past, and that causes a lot of or tension in the present because it just can't happen. You know, everything's going to change. Whether you can sit in a chair for 10 days, by the time you finish, like you can sit in a chair, do nothing for 10 days, and then by the time you get out of that chair, even though you've done nothing, you've changed. Everything's changed. The world's changed. Technology's changed.
Hmm.
It's what happens to the system and the things around us. And instead of fearing the change, embracing the change because you are change,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would have to agree with that. I was gonna say, it's like wearing like a rocking chair, that saying that they have. It gives you something to do, but doesn't really get you anywhere. I don't know. That popped into my mind when you were talking about that. But yeah, you're
Well,
absolutely right. Everything around you is changing. My daughter was in the hospital a week before Christmas. We spent in there and we came out. It was just like, yeah, everything had changed around me. Life had changed. Things keep moving, right? Even though sometimes we get in these situations, everything around you is still constantly moving and flowing. But I think that's the biggest thing, is then finding that, people don't relate to you in the same way. And not necessarily that you don't want to, just they don't, understand how to.
so here's a question that I have. It's at the time that this all happened, were you married?
Hmm. Yeah.
Did you have children?
Yeah. Hmm.
So so how did you how were you able to take care of the family and all this at the same time? Because and the business, there's a lot of stuff on your plate.
Yeah. I don't know. They have that saying that goes, sometimes you're only given what you can handle. And sometimes I just refer to that one. I'm like, yeah, if I was given the task, then I should be able to handle it. And yeah, I think in the beginning, it just really was about being strong. It was really about just staying focused. It's kind of probably like you when you're running a big, long race and you're 25 kilometers in and you're like, I got another 25 to go. Like, it's just focusing on that end result. And at that time, that's what it really was just focusing on that end result, focusing on where I wanted to go, and then just doing the daily action steps that I felt I needed to do to get there. Um, it's like I said, it's more afterwards when you realize all the internal stuff that came up. And it's funny, now I'm about to go through a renovation in my home. So
Mm.
I really feel like, shifting the environment really makes a big difference, but also I see it as an opportunity to do a bit of an internal shift, um, which, energetically with everything going on right now, it just feels all aligned. So. It makes a lot of sense. And I do really believe, though, your environment has a big impact on your mindfulness and your mindset. And that's something that I also do and did at that time, was I found things like, for example, you see joy. It's backwards probably, but
Yours. Love
I
yours.
yours. But I have little signs and affirmations in my home, whether it's on pillows or in different areas, that just are a constant reminder of something positive. And I found at that time, because I had actually come out of a large renovation, and then that's when I found out I had this hiccup to go through. And I'm like, what? But I really did find that created, oh, I don't know if I lost you there or not. I do
You're,
find, though, it was going through that journey, I was in a space that I had created, and it was inspiring to me, because when I went through it, I was like, I'm so happy that I got to do this while I was going through it all. But definitely, like, just little things like that, essential oils and fresh flowers and stuff, things that bring, a higher vibe energy into your space. It kind of just gives you that little extra advantage, I think, bringing in, yeah, a higher vibe energy.
yeah, I find that when people go through these situations, it's interesting to see how they go through it. There's no one right or wrong way to deal with a trauma, a disease, or anything in your life. It's how do you want to deal with it, and how are you going to deal with it? Because like at the end of the day, it's like you're going to have to deal with it in one way or the other. The way that you deal with it might be to sit and do nothing, or it might be like, okay, fine, I'm going to go do something. I know when I hurt my spine, I was just helping my neighbor change his tire, and I didn't bend my knees. I didn't do anything right, and then years and years and years of bad form and bad working out, and that wrong pull twisted a part of my spine. And the thought in my head, like, I'm like, what's going on? Like, I can't run anymore. Like everything that I've been doing, like I can't. Like, and then this idea of like my identity, I'm like, but who am I if I don't do this? And then I'm like, because I've gone through a lot of this stuff through my life, and I'm like, okay, Aaron, the next couple days, if you want, feel sorry for yourself, say whatever you need, like let it out. Just let it out. Make up whatever you need. But after you do this, we're going to do something about it, because we're going to move on, because this is not you, right? This is something that was created through your journey. So, and I moved forward and I created and I did something. And hearing your story as well, it's like, well, when this happened, you're like, okay, let's go do something about it. And was this like instant thought once you found out, or did you need to take time for yourself as well to process?
Um, it was pretty instant. So I
Hmm.
would say it was about 5 o'clock that day, because they had called me to come in actually after hours. And of course, I had like, a little bit of a cry there. And then I got home, and then it was like ugly cry. And then it was like, it's okay. Ugly cry. It's okay. Ugly cry. It's okay. I'll figure it out. It was kind of like back and forth for probably to about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. And then I just went to sleep. And then I woke up in the morning, and I called my girlfriend. Like I said, she's a doctor of acupuncture. And I was like, I need a plan. What do I do? And
Hmm.
and that's exactly what happened. So she's like, okay, get some spirulina, get some chlorella, let's get some turmeric. And I'm like, okay. And then she's like, you need to call this guy. And I'm like, okay. So, it just kind of, yeah, it was, I think I took that 12 hours to just like, and I'm not saying I didn't have bad days, but I don't know. I guess I saw a way out. I saw, like, I knew that it'd be possible to find it, because I had started reading and doing things that I just trusted and felt that it would work out. And I was like, I'm too darn young. I got things that I got to do. Like, I got places got to go, people see
Hmm.
me, yeah. And of course, having kids, that was, a huge driving factor too, because I want to enjoy my life with them. They're fun.
Hmm.
So yeah, yeah, it was pretty instant. I can't say it wasn't, but I think it's like just one of those things when you make up your mind you're doing something, you just do it. And and it just goes from there.
I think it's important, and I also like how you said and you acknowledge the fact that you're going to have bad days along it. The one thing that individuals sometimes think is like, okay, I make my move, I'll go straight, everything will be good, but it's not. It's like this windy road that's going around, and sometimes you're like, I feel like I've been in this turnaround for a long time. I'm like, where's the exit part? And then like you finally go down a next path, but the thing about it all is you're making movement. You're moving in a direction, right? It might not move straight, but it's moving into a point. And I think it's very important also to allow yourself to feel the feels.
Yes. I
Like,
mean, I would absolutely say that for sure. At the time, I didn't know that. At the
hmm
time, it was very much about like, okay, I'm having a moment. Let's cry it out and let's, get back to focus. But I think that's what I needed then. I didn't
hmm
need to, at that time, I don't think me sitting with it, for me anyways. Other people, it
for
could be
sure.
that exactly what they need. But for me, I just needed to like move forward. And certainly, like, there's a lot of waiting. And when you're waiting, there's always that like fear that creeps up, and there's always those questions that creep up. So, you really have to just use the power of the mind to kind of push through that. But absolutely, like afterwards, that's when the realization of like, okay, now I need to sit with this. Now I need to journal about this. Now I need to ask myself these questions. Even questions about how I handled things and how I
Yeah.
did things, why sometimes I would have put, I still was putting other people first before myself. And I was the one that really needed that, the nutrients, the healing, the energy. I'm the one running around going, now you need turmeric and you need this and you need that. And oh yeah, right. They're still me, but it's all good.
Yeah, we all
It's
process
a process.
exactly. We all process stuff in our own way. It doesn't mean that you have to feel it now. It doesn't mean you have to feel it in a couple of days. There's no right or wrong process of how to go through this. I remember I had a very traumatic thing happen to me, and I literally said to my mind, I'm like, let's get through this, and then let's talk about it after. And I got through it. Then after 8 months, I sat down and I'm just like, go. And I'm just like, "Meh." And like I started crying and I let it out and I'm like, ah, okay, good, let's move on. It's just like, but different times and different moments. So I like another thing that you said as well. It's just like, well, you were going through stuff, but yet you kept on taking care of those around you. When did you shift that idea of, whoa, one sec, I also need to focus on myself here because I'm the one that's going through things as well, or I'm the one that's going through things.
Yeah, that took time to come. And I'll be honest, like a couple of years.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't quick. Yeah. And it wasn't really, when I went through my meditation training, I really learned a lot there about, like that science aspect, the, history, blending in different practices.
hmm
And for me, that's really when I was like, wow, I really need this. And we went through like a 7-day intensive there, kind of 7 in the morning to 10, 11 o'clock at night. And that was a very transformational week for me in so many ways. I could go on, but yeah, it took time. Like I'm not even working with a coach and stuff. Like it took time. But when you're in a certain way, I mean, I'm 38 years old. When you've done something for so many years, we know about conditioning and programming and the subconscious. And when you're not aware that you need to shift something, it takes a little bit longer to get the ball rolling. Once the awareness comes that, oh, hey, I can, I need to shift this and I can do it. It's a little bit easier because, you learn things along the way and how to make it work out a little bit better.
For sure.
But I
And
mean, I'm still constantly learning and growing and evolving and awakening.
the thing is, that's why it's like awakening moments, not like awoke moments, because if it was awoke moments, I'd be in a graveyard. You know what I mean? It's just like that's not going to fly too well for a show. Because the idea is it's not to be like, oh, I've achieved it all. But once you've done that, you're dead. Like I believe that in life we should be 99% awakening, and then that 1% should always be the unknown because we should always be questioning and learning and growing. But if we all knew everything, this life would suck.
Right? I know I remember watching like Oprah one time and they talked about these like aha moments. And so I'd be like, what's my aha moment? Like, where's my one aha moment? And then now I'm like, no, there isn't really one, but I think you're right. It's like a part of you dies off because you're really stepping into a newer version of yourself that you can't go back to, because once you have an awareness of different things, you just can't go back because you're not honoring the person that you now are. And you know, and that's where things get complicated.
But I like that's amazing what you said. You're honoring the person you now are.
Hmm.
And that in itself holds a lot of power because you're changing, but now this is who you are. But that means later on, you will be another now, you'll be another now, you'll be another now. There's that constant, that shift. It's because as humans, that's what we do. We grow, we adapt, and we evolve, especially to our situations and the things that we surround ourselves with, which is very important. So like you've studied a whole bunch of stuff. I love your background. I love the things that you've done. Can you tell me about the importance of the things that you surround yourself with?
Yeah, it is really important what I surround myself with. And that's something that I'm still constantly, I think, evolving and shifting even right now, is really recognizing what fits in my life that, you know, brings me closer to the things that I want to do. It brings out the things in me that are better.
Hmm.
And what doesn't. And sometimes that's really difficult because there's a lot of attachment things that, you know, it could be, you know, whether it's just physical things, you know, relationships with people and stuff, really in relationship with anything, I suppose. um it it, it it's interesting. But yeah. uh that's a whole nother, I could have a whole nother conversation on that.
So what are the things that you surround yourself currently, from friends to food to music to media to, like, what is your surrounding of growth? Like the things that nurture you to grow as an individual.
Yeah. Well, for me, I have a practice, like I have a meditation practice, and I do have rituals. I like to follow, you know, the cycles of nature,
Hmm.
and work with those rhythms. And then I also definitely people in my life, the awareness of, you know, those that are really around me that are,
Hmm.
you know, there to be around. Team Tara, you know, it's all
Team Terra. Love
Team Tara.
that.
Yeah, who's on Team Tara? Who's not? You're not okay. Bye bye. So, but easier said than done sometimes, right? Easier said than done. And then, you know, it's interesting too in relationship, what shifts and what changes and why, and then, you know, sometimes you get to questions like, well, is it okay for me to not feel like this is good anymore? Like, is that like a bad thing? But that you know, I love to be surrounded by plants. I love to be in nature, and living here in Canada can be very difficult. It's eight
Mm.
months of the year. So, like I say, I like to bring things like that in my house. I like to use oils. I like to use mantras. I'm always listening to something. I don't know if it's Abraham Hicks or if I've got something going on. And if I wake up in the middle of the night, headphones go in and I'll put on, whether it's meditation, you know, sometimes I'll use like binaural beats, but usually I like to use like something that's, you know, programming my mind to wake up with something positive, because, you know, when you want to be in a certain state of consciousness, how you go to sleep and how you wake up really makes a difference. So that's something that I try to be mindful of.
Hmm.
um yeah, and clutter. I don't function well with clutter. I do well when my environment's clear. I mean, I've been in chaos before, and you learn to function in the chaos. When you go through enough renovation projects, you function in a lot of chaos. But yeah, I definitely just try to surround myself with things that are uplifting and positive, and it doesn't always, you know, it's not always perfect, but
Yeah.
the intention's at least there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a fan of what you're saying for clutter as well. It's like in my circumstance, like sometimes, like for the last week and a bit, it's just been go, 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 go from talk after talk after talk to also doing my work and handling other things and getting my meditation and getting my stretching and getting my workouts, getting everything all in together. And I noticed that there was a little bit of a clutter that was building up around me. And I last night I just cleaned it all up. I didn't care. I'm like, if I go to sleep late, I go to sleep late. I cleaned it up, I vacuumed, I did all that. And energetically, physically, and mentally, I just woke up and I'm like, I feel great because now my room has no clutter. My room is now nice and clean. And it's almost like a representation for our minds that when we take a moment to really focus on the things that are surrounding us and to clean them up and to organize them, when we are in those moments, we feel more at ease. We feel more space. We feel more comfortable in the surroundings that we're constantly in. I also believe that throwing away some clutter is very important because things do contain energy. So when you clean it up,
Hmm.
you're telling yourself it's okay to let go of this. It's okay to let go of that. And you make more room because you can't let new things in if you're holding on to all the old things, right?
Exactly. Yes. And it does, like, things do hold energy. I remember having a conversation with some ladies one day and talking about even just removing the trash because there's, energy in there, and they're like, oh, before the interview, I have to empty the trash. I have to empty the trash. It was a funny conversation, but you're right. Everything is energy and holds energy, and that's another thing I do. I like to take time to cleanse my home. I sage, I do weird things, but the intention's there, and it does feel lighter afterwards. And I've had those days too where I cleaned at 3 o'clock in the morning, but when you wake up the next day, it's so worth it. Like
So
the
good.
energy, it's not even comparable. you
Hmm.
know that I
Yeah,
just
I think if we talk about weird things, we're all weird. But it's just like, what is your weird? Like, what is your like? I like. Let me share my weird with you, and I'll share you. I'll share yours. And like, it's like I'll share my weird, and you share your weird. Because like saging and doing that stuff, it's not weird. I don't think it's weird at all. I think it's really cool that you do things that you believe will make your environment better. Psychologically, it does. Physically, it does, and mentally, it does as well. Now, there's science behind a lot of this stuff, but you should do things that make you feel good, right? You should give yourself permission to be like, yeah, I want this weirdness and stay free of the judgment of like, well, other people don't do this. It's just like, but if we did everything other people did, like, oh my God, like, like I have to deal with their stuff and my stuff and it's like, just deal with yours. Like focus on you and the things that you need to do. Now that you're, it's been years since these things have happened, or since this has happened in your life. You have your routine, you've written your book, you've done phenomenal things within your life. I want to know, because now that there's a little more space from what happened, if you were to meet somebody who went through or who's about to go through the same situation that you went through, they have family, they have kids, they have all these things going on, what advice would you share with them?
um I would say to just really follow their heart and what intuitively feels right to them.
Hmm.
And, there's that saying of not just to hand over your power to somebody in a white coat. And I don't mean that just because of that particular situation. It can be in any situation in life. I think it's really about holding on to your power and not giving it up.
Mm.
And I really believe if you set your mind to something, you can do it. I really, really do. I mean, look at how many races you ran this last year. You didn't just wake up one morning and go, meh, you had to put
Yeah.
a lot of mindset work that went in behind it. And I really believe if you believe, it can happen,
Hmm.
to stay in that place of belief. Heck, do you know how many crazy stories out there? There are people that are on their last legs and this happening, and all of a sudden, like, miracles happen all the time. Magic is around us, and it's something that we can create, and it's something that I'm still learning to do on a daily basis. It's not like I'm at some level where I'm like, I got this all figured out. There's still freaking hard days, and days where I'm like, dang, I thought I mastered that. What the heck?
Hmm.
But it's constantly going back and reframing and what is it? It was like Thomas Edison 1,000 times to, get the light bulb right. I don't know. Maybe I'm mixing up people now, but
10,000. Yeah, Edison 10,000 times for the light bulb.
right. But
And he
if he
found,
gave it up after, twice, we might not have light. So it's just like, if you believe that you can do something and you really set your mind to it, I think you can.
I like that. It's when Edison was creating the light bulb, and it was he's like I didn't fail 10,000 times. I discovered, 10,000 different ways to come to this moment of how to create the light bulb. You know what I mean? It's just like there's 10,000 achievements to come to this one instead of being like 10,000 failures. Nobody's a failure. I fully agree with you. Be your own miracle because you are magical. You have the ability to do these things. And when you listen to what other people say, like, we're all crazy, but that's okay. But thinking that you like trying to be normal, that's insanity. Because there's no one way of normal. Like, it's like if I'm normal, then you're messed up. But if you're normal, then I'm messed up. So one sec. So that means we're all messed up. So we're all crazy. Okay, cool. So if we try not to be this word, then we're good. Like we're good. Like actually, I just kind of want to be me, and whatever that is, which is ever changing. So like keeping up with the Joneses. That's like it's like keeping up with the like overdoses. You know what I mean? It's just like keeping up with things that play no part within our lives into who we are, which is so important. Anyways,
Boring. Keeping up
yeah,
with boring.
I don't want to be like anybody else. I want to be like me. Like I didn't come here to be anybody else. Even even people that are twins, they're not like, oh, we're twins, we should do everything together. They're like, no, no, we're going to do our own thing.
I have twins. They're vastly
Oh,
different.
cool.
They are night and day.
That's for sure.
It's awesome. But yeah, it's cool actually because watching them grow from babies that were, born around right, they're 4 minutes apart. It's so interesting how they can be so different and have such different personalities, and yet you can see how that they were brought together to like be each other's like half in some weird
Hmm.
quirky way. Like it's so funny, they'll talk and they'll just say things and one will say finish each other's sentence, like they just do these things that you're like, that's so funny. Like how do you guys just do that, right? But it's really cool to watch.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, when it comes to you and your growth and the things that you've achieved, it's amazing because you've gone from growing up to being an entrepreneur to dealing with the difficult situation to making it a very inspirational one that brought in growth, that brought in change, that brought in books, that's brought in this constant growth that you're doing. It's like you go into renovations and you do design. I think it's so symbolic of the kind of person that you are because you are constantly designing and creating and finding more beauty, not just in you, but in the things around you. So I think that's just a great thing about you. So before we go, let me ask you a question. If you could speak to your younger self, what would you tell them?
I would say do exactly what you know you need to do.
Mm,
Yeah, like it's kind of when I go back, like I look at it and yeah, in one way though, I think the one thing I probably would say is it's okay. Everything is okay. It doesn't matter what you're going through, what you're experiencing. It's going to be okay and it's going to be fine. And it'll be all worth it in the end. And I really actually do believe that. So as dorky as that sounds.
I like it because I'm a very big believer in believe it until you achieve it. But I'm not a believer in fake it till you make it because there's nothing fake about us. Nothing fake about us at all. If there's an idea and there's a belief in us, believe it and you will achieve it. Faith is in the things that we cannot see, but the things that we know. You know what I mean? It's like my friend, he's been spending the last 10 years to create a software and everybody's asking him, well, what is it? What is it? What is it? And he's like, I can't show you it because it's not a thing, but I can't open my mind and just be like, here it is. And now he has, and everybody's like, oh my God, that's amazing. That's exactly what everybody needed. And he's just like, but it takes time, to believe in your vision, to believe in your goal. Like, look at you, you do design. There's individuals that hire you and that do things with you for design, and you see this image, but it's hard for them to understand it until you take it from your mind and you literally upload it on a piece of paper and be like, bam, there you go.
Vision is the art of seeing the invisible.
Exactly. And the visible is the infinite and limitless ability to understand that it's limitless. There's possibilities everywhere.
Well, and it's the thing about creation. Like if you look at like an orchestra and you go to like these amazing shows like Cirque du Soleil and things that were put on, it didn't just get created overnight. Each piece of music was created intentionally. Each, choreographer dance was created intentionally, and it took time to find the right people and the places and the sounds and the instruments and the orchestra to bring all of that harmony together into 1.5-hour production. You know what I mean? It doesn't happen overnight. So anything that you're creating, you have to see it first and then allow it to kind of come together.
100%. One of my favorite mental exercises is to take an object and think about it backwards. So it's on your table. From the table, where did it come from? It came from the store. From the store, where was it created? How did it get there? Who created it? Was it in the factories? And from the factories, there was workers. And then you go behind, and then you visualize it until it was a thought in somebody's mind. And well, where does that thought come from? And you continue to go back. And then through that, you not only see like the interconnectivity of everything in this world, but it also gives you the idea that you can create anything in this world because everything around us was just a thought to begin with. So anything that you're thinking, if you think it's crazy, then you're probably thinking the right things, especially when it comes to design.
Totally. I do a lot of crazy things.
Awesome. Well, before we go, I just want to acknowledge you and just say, one, thank you so much. I'm very grateful for the friendship that we've created over the years. It's amazing to see your growth and, just your knowledge, your wisdom when it comes to a lot of life, your playful character, but also your determination to get things done and to move forward. The individual that you are, the laughter that you share with the world, and all in all, just you being you.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you for being you. You're pretty awesome yourself.
Well, beautiful. So, once again, thank you so much for your time, and we'll be doing this again for sure.
Absolutely. Fist pump. Thanks.
Fist bump.
Now I don't know how to get off of here. I didn't learn that part yet.
I got it.
Okay.